What's up? Jeff from RetroArcadeGaming.com, that's all one word, back with another edition of Port Battles. In this series, we take a look at a specific classic arcade game and see how well or poorly it's been ported to various home console and computer systems over the years. Up this week, a classic from 1982, Time Pilot. Time Pilot was developed and released by Konami in Japan and Europe, while Century had the North American distribution rights. The plot of the game is fairly simple. You are the pilot of an advanced fighter plane who must rescue your fellow pilots who happen to be stuck in different time eras. There are 5 different eras that you will travel to: 1910, featuring biplanes; 1940, featuring quicker and more efficient biplanes; 1970, featuring helicopters; 1982, featuring planes similar to your own; and 2001, featuring flying saucers. Each era has a mothership that appears after a certain number of enemies are destroyed. That is 56 for the first 5 levels, so level 1-1 through 1-5, and then it increases by 5 for every subsequent level. So 1-1 is 56 through 1-5 is 56. 2-1 through 2-5 would be 61. 3-1 through 3-5 would be 66, and so on and so forth. The mothership must be destroyed to move on to the next era. For 1910, that is a blimp. 1940, a B-25. 1970, a CH-46. 1982, a B-52. And 2001 is a large UFO. Each mothership takes 7 shots to destroy. You can earn bonus points by capturing parachuting pilots and shooting down an entire enemy squadron whose appearance is marked by a series of tones. After beating all 5 levels, as we talked about just a few minutes ago, the game starts over with increased difficulty. One of the unique aspects is that your ship turns but stays centered in the screen. Other than the UFOs in 2001, this game holds up very well. Still a ton of fun to play to this day. Here's a look at the original arcade release of Time Pilot via MAME. The Atari 2600 port of Time Pilot was released by Coleco in 1983. This is not a bad port for the 2600, but obviously does not stack up graphically. It doesn't look too bad. Unfortunately, the rapid fire from the original arcade game is gone, replaced by the ability to quickly fire off 2 shots. There are no paratroopers to rescue, no enemy squadrons to shoot down for bonus points. The 8-way joystick movement isn't captured real well, and it makes lining up shots difficult. The entire game seems to play a bit slow or sluggish. Despite the criticisms, it's actually pretty fun to play and not a bad port by 2600 standards. Have a look for yourself. Coleco also released a port for their own ColecoVision in 1983. I jokingly say that Coleco didn't spend a whole lot of time on the 2600 ports, so they look poor in comparison to their own ports. That's not entirely true. There's a little difference in design of the two systems and years between designs, but it's a fun joke to make, I guess. This is not a bad effort for the ColecoVision. It certainly is a step up from the Atari 2600 port. All of the original gameplay elements are present, including the rapid fire, the paratroopers, and the enemy squadrons. I'm not a huge fan of the sounds. I think the fire sound is a bit overbearing. Regardless, this is a much more fluid presentation than that on the 2600. Plays pretty well. Konami themselves released a port for the MSX in 1983. Again, this is a decent port, which I think looks a tad bit better than the ColecoVision port. Believe it or not, the ColecoVision and the MSX are fairly similar hardware-wise. The graphics are just a bit cleaner on this one. It's not a bad play on the MSX. So after that MSX port, we go a couple of years here with no official ports, but a few clones for various platforms. Fury was released for the TRS-80 color computer in '83. Interestingly, this one includes some synthesized speech in the intros and between lives. Has a few departures from the normal gameplay, at least on the first level. Can't say I've ever gotten past it. There's these homing bombs, or what I call homing bombs, which seem to be attracted to your ship. Very difficult to avoid or shoot down. There are parachutes and what I assume are hot air balloons. You shoot one, the other one you rescue. Unfortunately, it's often difficult to tell them apart. The difference is the size, basically. Other than that, they look identical to me. I believe the hot air balloons actually take the place of the formation squadrons, as you get bonus points for shooting them down. Like I've said in the past, if you wanted to play a Time Pilot-like game on your TRS-80 color computer, this was basically your option. It's not bad, could have been better, but could have been a whole lot worse. 1983 also saw a clone for the Commodore 64 released by Kingsoft entitled Space Pilot. While different in name, no mistaking that this is a clone of Time Pilot. All the original gameplay elements are present. The years have been slightly modified, and the mothership appearance is no longer based on number of enemies you shoot down, but rather on time. So when the timer expires without you losing a life, then the mothership appears. The sounds aren't great, but it looks pretty good. There is some slowdown when the screen gets busy, especially when the formations appear, but it doesn't really distract too much. It's really a decent clone for the Commodore 64. I apologize for the barking dog. Entirely unrelated to the Commodore 64 clone is the clone for the BBC Micro, sharing the same Space Pilot name. This was released by Superior Software in 1984. Graphics and sounds are a bit primitive, but it doesn't play too bad. Again, the years have been altered slightly from the original, but overall, this is a decent effort on the BBC Micro. In '86, a clone was released for the Sinclair ZX Spectrum entitled Time Flight. You may also see it advertised as Time Flight ZX. This has 4 difficulty levels, and having only played difficulty level A and struggling with it, I can't really tell you the differences. In order to advance to the next level, you need to collect all of the letters to spell out warp. Those letters float around the playfield. By ZX Spectrum standards, this one isn't too bad, but I do find it a bit difficult to play. There's lots of bullets that are extremely difficult to dodge, even difficult to see. Go ahead, have a look for yourself, but not a bad play on the ZX Spectrum. The Sharp X68000 got a port. By whom and when? Have no idea. I'm going to assume it was in the 80s sometime. I have no idea who released it. Like many of the Japanese systems, this one has at least what I think are some emulation issues. The game looks great, sounds pretty good, but it seems to play at warp speed. I've dialed it back to about 90% speed in this demo, but as you can see, it still plays extremely fast. If I dialed it to the point where the gameplay is normal, the music's way out of whack. So the music sounds like it's playing on a slow record at the wrong speed. If you can play it at the proper speed, I'm sure it's great. As it is in this video, it's almost unplayable. Now we jump to the titles that are almost undiscernible from the arcade original. Up first, the PlayStation port from the Konami Arcade Classics compilation. This one is excellent, replicates the actual arcade gameplay to a T. The compilation also includes 9 other classic Konami arcade games, including Circus Charlie, which we've already taken a look at. Next, the Game Boy Advance port from the Konami Collector's Series Arcade Advanced compilation, released in 2002. Compilation features Frogger, Russian Attack, Gyrus, Scramble, and Ye Are Kung Fu, as well as Time Pilot. Again, this one looks and plays very well on the small Game Boy Advance screen. A port was released for the Nintendo DS via the Konami Classic Series Arcade Hits compilation in 2007. Plays exactly as it should. The compilation includes 14 other Konami classics, including Super Basketball, which is all the information you need to know to make it worth its purchase. 2009 saw a digital release for the Xbox 360 via the Xbox Live Arcade. Published by Konami and developed by Digital Eclipse, it's a spot-on recreation of the arcade original. Like most of the Xbox Live Arcade titles, it's priced at a reasonable $4.99. "2018 saw a Homebrew port developed by New Generation for the Atari 8-bit systems. This is actually an outstanding port for the 8-bit, with all of the original gameplay elements accounted for. It looks good, sounds good, really pretty darn impressive for the platform. Nice work by New Generation on this one. Finally, a digital release was made available in 2019 for the Switch, PS4, and Xbox One by Hamster. It plays faithful to the original, a little pricey at $7.99. It's the same release for each platform. Today, we're taking a look at the PS4 version. That wraps up our look at Time Pilot ports, a classic game by Konami that I don't really think gets the attention or appreciation that it should. I was a bit disappointed that it wasn't included in the recent Konami Anniversary Collection for the PC, Switch, PS4, and Xbox One, as I would have much rather showcased that release than the overpriced $8 offering currently available on those platforms. No love for Time Pilot, even by Konami. There's a homebrew port for the Vectrex entitled Vector Pilot, which I don't have a copy of. Probably a good thing, because I don't have a Vectrex either. From what I've seen, it's actually a great port for that system. A Japanese-only port is available for the PlayStation 2 via the Game Center Volume 4. Don't have a copy of it, so I can't include it here. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching. As I said in the last video, got a busy schedule the next few weeks, so I'm going to focus on a few titles that weren't so commonly ported, hopefully to get them out just a bit quicker. If you have a suggestion for a future episode, feel free to drop it in the comments below. We'll see you next time. Until then, happy gaming. Peace.